The guy who owns the pest control company in your neighborhood probably makes more money than the startup founder your friend keeps posting about. He's not on any magazine cover. Nobody's writing a documentary about him. He just shows up, sprays for termites, and sends an invoice every single month to the same 300 houses. While the exciting startup burns through investor cash trying to find a business model, this guy already has one. It's just not interesting enough for anyone to talk about. That's the trick, actually. The businesses nobody wants to talk about tend to be the ones quietly making the most money. There's a reason for that, and it has to do with how your brain evaluates opportunity in the first place. Psychologists call it novelty bias. Your brain is wired to pay attention to things that are new, exciting, or emotionally charged, and to tune out things that feel repetitive or dull. It's the same reason news coverage focuses on plane crashes instead of car crashes, even though driving is statistically far more dangerous. Novelty grabs attention. Reliability doesn't. And that bias shapes more than what you watch. It shapes what you think is worth building. So when you imagine starting a business, your mind jumps straight to the exciting version. An app, a brand, something that could go viral. The unglamorous version, the one where you fix garage doors or clean out cluttered basements, never even makes it onto your list. Not because it's a worse business, because it's a worse story. Warren Buffett built an entire investing career on the opposite bet. He avoided most technology investments for years, not because he didn't understand the appeal, but because he wanted businesses with what he called a durable competitive advantage. Predictable demand, repeat customers, low chance of being disrupted overnight. He wasn't chasing excitement, he was chasing certainty. And certainty, it turns out, is exactly what boring businesses are built on. Start with pest control. It's the clearest example of what makes these businesses work in the first place. Termites and rodents don't care about the economy, and neither does the maintenance contract that gets renewed every single year. That renewal is the whole engine. One contract signed today quietly generates revenue for years without a single new sale. The owner isn't hunting for new customers every quarter. He's just servicing the ones he already has, which is a very different kind of stress than running a business that has to reinvent itself to survive. Phone and computer repair runs on the same logic, just with a different trigger. Screens crack, batteries die, laptops slow to a crawl right when someone needs them most. That urgency means people pay a premium to get it fixed today, not next week, and a repair shop that keeps overhead low, sometimes by going mobile and skipping the storefront entirely, can turn that urgency into a steady, high-margin business. There's no marketing campaign required to convince someone their cracked screen is a problem. The problem already exists in their pocket. Then there's the notary and loan signing agent. It's not a business that inspires a TED Talk, but every time someone refinances a mortgage or closes on a house, somebody has to sit across the table, verify identities, and stamp the paperwork. That person gets paid well for an hour of predictable, necessary work tied to something people will always need to do: buy, sell, and refinance property. Event equipment rental works a little differently. Instead of one contract, it's the same folding tables, chairs, and tents going out again and again, wedding after wedding, birthday after birthday. Buy the inventory once, rent it out for years. The asset barely depreciates faster than the income it produces, and it fits neatly around a full-time job, which is exactly why it tends to start as a side hustle before it becomes anything more. Vending machines take that same idea and strip out almost all the labor. There's nothing sexy about a machine that sells chips and soda, but the business model runs on what economists call recurring low-friction demand. People don't research a candy bar purchase. They're hungry, the machine is right there, and the transaction takes 4 seconds. Multiply that by machines placed in the right high-traffic spots, and you've got income that shows up whether you're actively working or not. That phrase, income that shows up whether you're working or not, is worth pausing on. It's the entire idea behind passive income, a concept Robert Kiyosaki spent an entire career popularizing in Rich Dad, Poor Dad. His argument wasn't that passive income is easy. It's that most people never build it because they're too busy trading hours for dollars in a job, instead of building a system that earns independently of their direct time. A local courier service is that kind of system once it's running. A driver, a route, and a handful of steady clients, law firms, medical labs, small businesses that need documents or specimens moved quickly, and the business runs on repetition. Same pickups, same drop-offs, same invoices every week. It's not thrilling. It's also not fragile. It doesn't collapse because a trend changed or an algorithm shifted, because people will always need things moved from one place to another quickly and reliably. And once a law firm trusts a courier with something time-sensitive, switching to a competitor becomes a risk they'd rather not take. That's not loyalty. That's just how contracts work once reliability has been proven. Compare that to a trendy business, a niche subscription box, a social media-driven product line. Those can be enormously profitable for a while, but they live live and die by attention, and attention is the most unstable resource there is. One algorithm change, one shift in taste, and the entire revenue engine can stall out in weeks. Boring businesses don't have that problem because they're not selling attention. They're selling something people actually need, regardless of what's trending. This is where opportunity cost becomes worth understanding. Opportunity cost is simply the value of the next best option you give up when you make a choice. When you spend 2 years chasing a flashy idea that never gains traction, the real cost isn't just the money you lost. It's the boring, profitable business you could have built instead, quietly compounding the entire time. So why does the exciting path still feel worth the risk, even when the numbers rarely support it? Part of the answer comes down to something behavioral economists call the availability heuristic. You judge how common or likely something is based on how easily examples come to mind. You've heard dozens of stories about the app that made someone rich overnight. You've heard almost none about the guy running an epoxy garage flooring business who can build a highly profitable local operation installing durable coatings in suburban garages. Not because that business is rare, because it's invisible. Nobody makes a documentary about consistent, repeatable profit. Used cooking oil recycling is invisible in exactly the same way. Restaurants need to get rid of their oil. Biofuel producers need a steady supply of it. That mismatch, one side has a problem, the other side has a solution, is where boring businesses live. It's not glamorous work, but it's dependable work, and dependable work is exactly what builds equity over time. Space organizing shows how far that consistency can travel. The startup costs are almost nothing, some bins, some labeling supplies, and a genuine eye for order. But the real engine of the business is referrals. One organized closet becomes a photo in a group chat. That photo becomes 3 new clients. It's the same principle that drives compound interest in investing, where small, consistent gains build on themselves until the growth curve bends upward in a way that feels almost sudden, even though it was steady the entire time. Mobile home investing takes that principle to its highest ceiling. Buying undervalued mobile homes, making targeted improvements, and either renting or reselling them isn't a business built on hype. It's built on a persistent gap between housing demand and housing supply, something economists have documented for years as a structural, not temporary, issue in many markets. That gap doesn't close because the trend faded. It closes slowly, if at all, which is exactly why the opportunity keeps existing year after year. It also requires more capital upfront than most of the businesses on this list, which is precisely why fewer people compete for it. Higher barriers to entry usually mean less competition once you're through the door. So what actually separates the people who build wealth through businesses like these from the people who never do? It usually isn't intelligence, and it isn't even risk tolerance. It's patience, paired with a willingness to reinvest early profits instead of spending them. Behavioral economist Richard Thaler has written extensively about how humans consistently overvalue immediate rewards compared to delayed ones, a pattern known as present bias. It's why so many small business owners pull profits out too early, spending on lifestyle upgrades instead of pouring that money back into equipment, marketing, or hiring. The businesses that actually scale are usually run by people who resisted that urge long enough for compounding to take hold. They tracked their numbers month over month, even when the numbers were small and unglamorous. And they treated the first year of profit as fuel for the second year, not as a reward for the first. None of these businesses are exciting to talk about at a dinner party. Pest control, vending machines, event rentals, courier routes. Nobody's writing a movie about any of it, but that's exactly the point. The businesses that get turned into inspiring stories are usually the exceptions. The businesses that quietly, reliably make money are usually the rule. And the rule is far easier to replicate than the exception ever was. So the next time you're evaluating a business idea, ask yourself a different question than the one your instincts want you to ask. Don't ask whether it sounds impressive. Ask whether people will need it next year and the year after that, regardless of what's trending. Because the guy running the pest control company in your neighborhood isn't rich because he found something thrilling. He's rich because he found something necessary, and he showed up for it month after month, long after everyone else had moved on to something more interesting.